So I really didn't have any part in the outcome on this. And this is really something that other Republican senators came to their own conclusions on. Even in private conversations, this was something where other people were expressing concerns every day, more and more concerns. Then you get to today, where now you have what looks like a record turnout coming out in a typical primary season. That's what swayed a number of Republican senators to switch their votes on it. But I think last week, whenever, it was pretty clear to me where this was probably going to head. Although, as I told you all last week, I actually thought that we probably had the votes to pass something in the end. But when you get to today, and people were coming into the State House today, and they were seeing pictures of South Carolinians standing in line all morning, and then you keep getting these updates every 30 minutes as to what the turnout has been, it doesn't surprise me that this is where we ended up.
What message does this send to Washington, in your opinion? Is it a rebuke on President Trump, or is it a rebuke on Washington in general, trying to push a map like this through without the normal process?
No, I don't think that from Republican senators' perspective, it was a rebuke to President Trump at all. I think we're all very supportive. This happened way late in the game, to the point that we were asked to start this process after ballots had already been sent and some ballots had already been cast. So that was a problem from the outset. The further you go along, the more you realize that there are some real significant errors in the map that the House was able to produce. And it really wasn't the House's fault. They moved so quickly in response to the White House's concerns that they didn't catch some of the problems. A number of these things have just been coming to light over the last few days. The more you see those things, the more of a problem there is. So I think the errors that we've discovered just in the few days that we've had, the fact that people are lining up to vote today and they're going to have a bigger number tomorrow, all those things I think were really weighing heavy on a number of Republican senators. This was not intended, from my observation, it was not intended as a rebuke to the President of the White House at all. It's just a recognition that we represent South Carolina, and we've had to figure out how best to serve South Carolinians.
Well, still, this was a conversation pre-Calais, and obviously there's some people out there who are saying that we could have moved quicker on this when we had the opportunity. Do you anticipate this coming up again next year, or even the year after that, before the next census?
I don't know, it could be. There was a conversation last fall, but there really hasn't been any conversation this year up until earlier this month. Because when we spent time last fall looking at the issue and concluded that we probably ought not get into it. Not because we didn't want to maximize our seats, but because we thought we already had. And we had been confirmed by the U.S. Supreme Court in that effort. So does it come up again next time? I don't know. We'll have to see how things go.
Senator, you said right when the special session was called that you felt that the push to redraw these lines would lose support the more it got dove into. Was there a certain time throughout this past week or so that you felt that you kind of saw that happening when it came to this push to redraw the lines?
Well, one of my concerns all along, as y'all know, I've had several concerns, but one of my concerns all along was that you were going to energize not only Democratic voters, but also people in the middle who might not typically vote in primaries, but they'll vote in November, that you energize them to come out and vote against you, because people will vote when they're angry. And I think what we're seeing today across the state with the record turnout, early voting turnout that we're seeing, is that we've made some people mad. And just having the debate, right, just even having this conversation has upset a lot of South Carolinians because they think that we're cheating. And that's going to result in a big number today. My hope is that we have a big Republican push to try to counter that in November, or else there's going to be some losses, which I was concerned about, especially some down ballot losses among Republicans, just by having the conversation. Just having the conversation is going to affect the primary in the 1st Congressional District, where you have, they're like 47 candidates or something running for Congress in the 1st District. There are a number of people down there who are going to be confused as to whether they should be voting for Congress or not. I'm concerned that just having this debate is going to lead to lawsuits, because whoever finishes 3rd in that race, the person who doesn't make the runoff, if that's close, if the margin is close, and I suspect it will be because there are lots of candidates, they're going to have an argument to make So, yeah, I mean, I think that just having this debate is going to have negative consequences for Republicans across the state.
You kind of mentioned the first kind of speech for the sine die agreement that this could impact South Carolina's reputation as a leader in the state. Do you think just having the debate impacted South Carolina's stature in Washington or reputation in Washington?
No, I think had we successfully passed the map and it had been implemented, I think then what you get are more congressional candidates who are just going to fall in line as opposed to being thinkers, and that's going to affect our standing at the national level. I don't think where we are now is going to affect our standing at the national level. I do think this will affect Republican candidates in South Carolina, however.
Were you consulted at all about the rules and everything? I mean, I'm kind of finding it interesting that we ended up where we ended up on Tuesday when the rules are already out there. So were you consulted beforehand, or did they freelance this without your help on the rules?
No, I mean, well, they were asking me. They would ask what if we do this, what happens? But I really did not drive this train. This was other senators who were coming to conclusions on their own about what to do, and then they were talking with the parliamentarian about implications of the rules. And I had some people ask me questions like, what if this happens, then what if we do this? What will be the impact of that? But I really, I was trying not to influence anybody on this. As I said from the outset, I said it to y'all publicly, I said it from the floor, I said it in private meetings. This is every senator for himself.
And I'm not a tin hat person, but it seems interesting to me that there were a couple of days where nothing happened, and that people didn't realize that we were going to get to Tuesday before y'all could do anything under the rules without that 2/3 vote out there. So, should I be wearing my tin hat?
Look, I mean, that was not a hard math problem to figure out if you'd just taken the time to sit down and think about it. If you take a step back and look at it, the Senate hasn't even had the bill for a week, right? And, the Judiciary Committee moved at warp speed to get it out, which was a little bit concerning to me, frankly, because I was concerned that they didn't give the public enough notice before the hearing was held. But Judiciary got it out. Under the rules, you're going to have 3 days of debate for second, 3 days of debate for third. That is the minimum number that we hit. But if people had just sat down and thought about it, you were going to get to today from when we got the bill. We got the bill on Wednesday. There was no way to have done it earlier unless you're going to have people, unless the opposition was going to stand down. Well, that wasn't going to happen.
Do you think the House looked at the Senate rules when they were trying to get this bill out without meeting over a weekend themselves?
I really, really doubt they looked at the Senate rules. I really doubt that they even thought about that. I think they had enough problems of their own, and they were just trying to do their best to get it out as soon as they could get it out. And they did. The House moved really quickly to try to move this bill. They were trying to comply with constitutional requirements to ensure people had an opportunity to be heard and that House members had an opportunity to engage a map room, which we didn't even have. I think the House tried to move as quickly as they could. There never was enough time for this from the outset. There just never was enough time. And when you look at the errors that have popped up, like even if we'd passed this bill 3 weeks ago, we were going to have real problems with implementation. The counties just were not going to be able to pull this off. They didn't have time logistically to make the changes for candidate filings, which would be scheduled for next week. And even if you had races in August, they weren't going to have time to make sure that these voters are in the right district and those voters are in that district, and that when they show up in polls that they're going to get the right ballots. There never was enough time from the outset on this.
Has there been any recent dialogue with the governor's office on this? I mean, he's ultimately the reason we're here.
I haven't spoken with the governor.
Attorney General Alan Wilson, who's running for governor, just said that the fight is not over and expressing his disappointment with the Senate. Is the fight over?
I don't know. Maybe he knows something I don't know. But I think the key part of that, of what you just asked me, is running for governor.
Do you think the fact that we underwent this during the special session kind of hurt some of the other priority bills from this past session? Do you still expect to get to DUI, some of the other items?
I sure hope so. I mean, there are a number of things that are still hanging out there that really affect a lot of South Carolinians that we do need to wrap up. We still have the budget that's out there. We also have, I don't know, probably 10, 12, 15 bills that are in conference committee, including the ones you mentioned like THC and DUI. There are other things out there as well that we really got to get to before June 30th. And so my hope is that we'll be able to do that. But we're coming back on June 10th. I don't think we're going to be ready with all those bills on June 10th because I suspect that most of the House members are not going to be willing to participate in conference committees up until before then. So then you're going to have a very short period of time to wrap up all the business that we need to wrap up. So I'm a little bit concerned, yeah.
Do you think this effort kind of limited the ability to pass those or
Well, it was a big curveball. It was a big curveball, no question about that. But I'm a little concerned because we have a short window in June, but I'm optimistic. We'll be able to figure it out. But there are some significant differences that have to be resolved on the budget and some of the other bills too. That DUI bill, the THC bill, those aren't going to be easy to resolve. So we're going to have some work to do.
How far into June are you guys expecting to work?
We don't have a deadline yet. There's a deadline, of course, for the budget. But we haven't talked about a drop dead date for legislative work to be done. The goal up until a month ago, the goal was by Memorial Day. Right? We wanted everything to be done by Memorial Day, and we were on track for that to happen. Now we've got this curveball, but it'll work out. But we've got a lot to do in a short period of time.
Speaking of the budget, entering today's conversation, we still didn't have a way to pay for all this, right?
That's right. Now, I understood that there was probably going to be an amendment coming up on this bill to put money into that effort. Of course, that was going to cause some consternation because it would have caused the bill to go back to the House of Representatives, which would have delayed it even more. But you're going to have to come up with some money somewhere to pay for this. That money was not in the budget because both the House and the Senate had passed their versions before this ever began. So that was going to be an issue. Yeah. Is that it?